Welcome. If you're here, you're live with us with 50 first chapters. We're talking about humor, hooking the reader. I am Nikki Triunfo.
I'm Heather Clark.
And we're trying to be funny, obviously. Well,
actually, Nikki just told me tonight to come dressed up, and I'm just really glad I didn't go all out, because, like, if I had really tried, I mean.
Okay, if you're here, chat us. Chat us. We got to know if you're here
clearly,
so that we can, make sure. Here, we got to hide ourselves. We do have actual.
We don't want to look at our faces. It's creepy.
We do have actual content.
I'm all look at that girl.
Whoever comments will be automatically entered to win a free
critique.
First chapter critique. Okay, so you are thinking of making your first chapter the best that you can. Now, I've been a judge of a first chapter contest. Heather, you are not.
I have been in a first chapter contest.
Well, I wasn't a judge for like a super.
That was self-deprecation. It's coming like on the second page.
But one thing that I noticed, basically, you have a stack of first chapters, and I can't see. Bill, we're going to put this up a little bit. Yes, we are going to stay in our costume all the way through. I think that really.
I don't think I can get this out, Nikki.
It's awesome. It's look at that poof. Okay, so. When I was going through the stack of chapters, and I know I already told you this, but no one's chatting us. Come on, guys.
Is it live? Are we sure it's live?
I know, that's what I'm always worried about.
I really think people just like us way too much to not chat us. So I think. Oh, it's you.
Are you there? We can check. I'll check on my other computer to make sure we're going. But I might wait for my husband for that. Okay.
No worries.
So when I was reading this big stack, you're reading a stack of first chapters where people are introducing new characters and new worlds, and they're trying to introduce the main problem of the story. And so a lot of times there's a lot of plot being thrown at you, and sometimes it's kind of like going to Walmart and meeting someone and they tell you their problems, which can be a good way to get to know them, but can also kind of make you annoyed with them. And it gets to be a lot. Like, you're reading like 50 solid pages of people introducing characters. So what I noticed is if any author really nailed a good joke in their first chapter, it was such a breath of fresh air as a reader, even if it wasn't a comedy.
Well, especially because we're supposed to put so much conflict into that first chapter. We're worried about getting the stakes clear and show the lack and this poor person who has all the problems. And we run the risk of them being really, really whiny and or just like apocalyptic.
Right,
so we have to be able to laugh.
Right. So if you have a few, like I noticed personally, like if I ever laughed out loud in the first chapter, they got like a 7 out of 10 immediately on voice, because I was like, great, you killed it, So
I'm always pleasantly surprised if someone can make me laugh when I'm reading.
Totally. I'm reading this one. Look at my stack of books, guys. This is so awesome.
Because all the current reads?
These are all of the books that I'm going to quote if we have time for funny examples.
Fun.
I just picked all the books on my shelf that were from local authors, except for this one. It was sent to me by my agent, but it's freaking hilarious. You got to read it.
Awesome.
It's totally funny. I've only read like 4 pages.
I was like, if you're done, pass it along.
No, I only just barely started it. Just legitimately, I started it yesterday, and I'm like, oh, that's going in our humor thing. Okay, so what is humor anyway? Okay, so I read a book called The Humor Code, and we will.
She just said she read a book called The Humor Code. I thought she said wrote a book. She did not write it, but she read it.
Heather, tell us a little bit. No, you can't tell us a little bit about.
I can't. It's your job.
This is my job.
I can't talk about abnormal things because I'm so normal.
I gotta make sure.
I can tell you that kind of the focus of today is that humor is a blending of opposites, and you can see from the way that we're dressed
there are 10 people watching. YouTube will not let you hide people. You got to give us your chats, your comments.
Watching. Okay, please tell us how beautiful my hair is, and not how beautiful my hair is.
I got ready way faster.
That's true.
Threw this baby on.
That's true.
Okay, so I'm going to talk for a little bit about this book that I read. It's called Humor Code. I'll put it on the blog. But anyway, it takes humor and makes it very academic. So I don't know if I recommend it for all writers necessarily. I mean, check it out if you want to. But one of the things that it talks about is the evolution of laughter and humor and where they think it came from. So they say they did studies on like monkeys, and I told you this. Monkeys will make a kind of a chuckling noise when they're play fighting, and it kind of signals that this isn't a real fight. We're not really trying to take over the tribe leadership or anything like that. This is just play fighting. And so one of the things I think, so going back into the evolution of humor, they think that cavemen kind of, like, as things progressed, maybe thought things were funny. Imagine you're a caveman and you think there's a panther outside that's gonna like attack you.
And it's a chicken.
It turns out to be a chicken.
So then
it's
laugh.
Hilarious.
Right.
It's like the funniest thing ever.
Right.
So basically humor is like a twisting of a mood or a twisting of anything like that. So the more mood that you have to work with, which is why it's fun with writing, because you should be creating a lot of mood, and so you can twist the mood anytime. And then, so humor is a blending of opposites, and that's your first word here. I should have brought a big pen. It was really dark. So we could write the words with
hear us. I have very large bold font like mine.
Okay, so the very first one, humor is a blending of opposites or shifting of moods. So like the first one is normal versus abnormal. That's one option. Or safe versus unsafe, or kind versus mean. And we're gonna go into some examples here.
Mickey versus Heather.
That's true.
Like, we're kind of oil and water, and when we get together with other people, sometimes they think it's funny that we're friends. And the thing is that when I start a sentence with Mickey and I say, like, my energy healer told me, she does that.
Her
and if I start,
is my favorite person.
If I start a sentence with, you should see the difference since I opened my sacral chakra, then she has to laugh or stop being my friend. So, like, it works out really well because we're a good blending of opposites.
Yes. And that's true of anyone. I mean, even your own spouse or your own kid or whatever, you know, you're never exactly the same. And you kind of can play off of that in your jokes, you know?
Right.
But also, we're going to go into more details later. So just kind of hang with us. Safe versus unsafe would be like going into a nightclub. If you, or, you know, that's the classic, like, late night humor. And safe versus unsafe in that instance is they will make fun of things that typically we would find unsafe. So war, I told you about this, like child molesters,
right.
Affairs, like just all kinds of immoral stuff.
The thing that occurred to me that's actually like kind of innocent is the Studio C where they're playing Murder in the Dark.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh yeah, so they're playing Murder in the Dark, but one of the guys doesn't know what the game is, so they tell him he's the murderer and he has to kill someone. So then everyone closes their eyes and he kills someone because it's super stressful to him, but he has to fit in with these people and that's the game. He has to kill someone. So, and he does, and then when they all open their eyes, someone is dead.
That's awesome. That's really
safe versus unsafe.
So humor in this sense, and this is why you want it in your first chapter, not only because it's a tension reliever, but humor, this is, the editor of The New Yorker said that humor is like a heat-seeking missile, and this is a loose quote. It finds people who define normal and absurd the same way that you do. In other words, they have your similar code of what is a violation and what isn't a violation. And so it kind of tends to bond you.
Which is how you decide to get married, for real.
For real.
I think that is the number one thing.
Well, it's actually, if you look at it evolutionarily, from an evolutionary standpoint, it's who you decide is part of your tribe,
right? Who's
part of your family, who's part of your broader tribe. Like, who should you align with when it goes down, when it comes down to war?
Right.
Who do you align with? And a lot of times it's
who should be your critique partner, because if they're not going to think anything you think is funny, that's a bad idea.
Then get rid of them.
Pick something else.
Okay. So after you've laughed with somebody, you generally feel socially closer to them. And so if you can get your reader to laugh at your first chapter, they will feel bonded with your voice or your character or whatever.
No, that's so true. Jeanette Rollison is the first author that I remember reading her book and then running out to get everything else she's written because she was funny.
Right.
She's just lighthearted and funny, and I would laugh out loud. And when I would laugh at her joke and get her little in joke, I would think, oh, you and me, we're just like each other.
Right, right, right.
So.
And you know, that's an interesting thing though, is that not everyone's going to be a fan of hers.
Right.
Because some people like their humor really differently. There are some people who really like biting humor or really edgy humor, and that's awesome. You know, they should go to a place that is, you know, delivering that. Humor, it doesn't really translate very well from one culture to the next, or even from one generation to the next necessarily, which is actually good for us.
The other day I was listening to my 12-year-old, 11-year-old talk to her 12-year-old cousin, and they were laughing hysterically. And I remember sitting at the table thinking, when I was doing this, I thought my parents were really missing out on something. And I can tell why they're laughing.
Right.
But it's not funny.
Not funny. I know, it's so true. But the thing that's nice about that is that it means there's endless room for new. There's
right.
endless room for new. When it comes to drama, yeah. Well, when it comes to drama, people are still reading Charles Dickens. You know, there's humor there. Don't get me wrong. Of course, there's humor there. But if you read like a Japanese drama, that's going to translate pretty well, and you're going to enjoy it. But Japanese comedy, although I love Japanese comedy, but you kind of have to get a sense of it. You kind of have to. It
takes you a while. It takes you while you kind of watch with these wide eyes outside like K-dramas.
People are nuts.
I love them, but
right. So anyway, there's always an appetite for new stuff with humor. Humor does show us a lot of perspective. It actually gives your world a lot of depth if you can make fun of your world. Twilight, I always mention Twilight. I know people like it a lot, but it doesn't have a lot of depth in that it never makes fun of itself. It really doesn't.
That's true.
Bella never sits there and thinks, you know, I am kind of shallow, ever. That's why it's so fun to spoof.
Oh, because it takes itself really
so serious. So you can just entirely, you know. All right. Okay, so 3 types of humor in writing. Did you want to take this one? Do you want to take the
3
next
types
one?
of humor?
Oh, I'm going to take.
Go for it.
Okay, you're going to take the next one. Okay. So on my little outline here, I like to think of humor as having 3 broad categories. The last category is the only category that I consider comedy. Okay, so the first category is actually social bonding. What's happening is that character A is laughing with character B, and the job of the narration is to show the characters, both of them, A and B, laughing. And so,
but you don't even, as the reader, have to get it. You have to know that they did.
Yeah, exactly.
They felt it.
It doesn't even have to be funny. I mean, it can be. That's awesome if it is. So this is Espionage by local author A.L. Sowards. I hope I'm saying that right. This is my friend, Amanda. She writes for Covenant. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but she's, one character is talking. They put a shirt on a cow once upon a time for fun, he and his brothers. And then the mom came out and she was yelling at us. They started chasing the calf, trying to help, then it turned around and started chasing her. We tried to convince my mom that the calf had stuck its leg in my dad's shirt all by itself, but mom was smarter than that. The quotes close, and the next line is, Genevieve laughed. Now, this is the romantic hero telling a childhood story, and this is the romantic heroine laughing. They're bonding together.
They just absorbed it. You're part of my tribe.
Yes, they've started their journey toward being, you know, hooked up and all that.
But don't make the same mistake that I made one of the first times I did that in a romantic novel, where I had them just both laugh so hard over the joke that they couldn't breathe. The joke wasn't that funny.
Yeah, I suggest
everybody was like,
please don't have them laugh
don't
so
describe
much.
Their
because it makes it what it tells the reader is you should be laughing as hard.
Right, because I'm funny. Aren't I funny?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Okay, the next category is social division. This one's pretty easy to understand. Character A laughs at character B. I didn't even find an example because everyone's seen this. And it doesn't have to be funny. What they say doesn't have to be funny. They can just say, dude, look at Heather's necklace. And then like everyone in the room laughs because Heather is on the outs and we are establishing clearly that she is
abnormal.
Yeah, she's abnormal by definition. It doesn't really matter about the necklace, you know, and it doesn't have to be witty or anything. I know, but it can be witty, but it doesn't have to be. And you want to show, of course, only character A laughing, and you want to specifically say character A laughed or the rest of the room laughed or whoever's laughing. Okay, now comedy though, and this is where I think sometimes people get close to comedy in books. Sometimes new writers don't nail it quite the way that it needs to be nailed. So what happens, or what you want to happen, is that the reader actually laughs with character A or B, not that the characters are laughing. Even though if you were watching it, even though if that happened in real life, they would probably laugh. You don't want to rob them. You don't want to rob the reader of that laughter. You want the reader to have to laugh and to have to pause and enjoy that moment and then go on. And you don't want them to be reading about how the characters did that. That just drags the joke out. No. It's not cool.
It's kind of like what we're doing all the time in a novel is trying to give our reader an immersive emotional experience. Right. And we want them to feel the emotions. And so if what you do is make your character laugh, then the reader doesn't have to. If you make them cry, then the reader doesn't have to. What we want to do is have your reader bawling while the character is strong, right, or whatever. While the character experiences this crazy thing, the reader's laughing out loud.
And also it's assumed. Like when you say we went into the house, you don't have to say like I reached for the door handle and I turned it and I opened the door and I stepped over the threshold, and like we don't have to go into that many details. You know, if the joke was funny, they're likely going to laugh. The other nice thing about not saying that they laughed is that you don't tip your hat off to the reader that you tried to make a joke. If they truly define normal and abnormal very differently than you, they might read that and just keep going and not even catch it.
You might be just busting, another reader might be busting their gut.
Right.
That's okay.
And that's awesome. That's what you want. Again, think of it as that heat-seeking missile. You want it to land on the people that it lands for, and you want to not bother anyone else.
Right. They might think, that was weird.
And just move on. And just whatever. It doesn't matter. Okay. Pacing and editing.
All right, we'll just keep it tight. And with the real critical thing here, and I think this is just like a standard writing concept all the way through, end on the punchline, end on the hook, end on the theme. That's, so if it's the disaster, if it's the decision, whatever, that is the moment that something changes. And so Nikki was pointing out to me the Studio C does it really well. And so I went back and watched a few clips today. And I was remembering, and so we take this joke and we're escalating it. We're coming up with funnier and funnier. And then we rip our earrings out of our ear.
I know, these things are killer.
And so I don't know if you've seen the Studio C with Matt Meese where he's going to carry all the groceries in one trip. Well, he keeps piling it up, and he's got more and more stuff. And finally he's like, take this hook, put it in my shoulder. And then they hang the milk from the hook. And you think that's the end of the joke, right? But that still would just be one step up the escalating chain. The final moment is when she says, okay, we've got all the groceries. And he says, great, show me the elevator. And she turns to him, they're in the parkade. She goes, elevator? And that's your moment when you know that he's dead. Like there's no way that he can make it. And his whole assumption was wrong. So just flipping that assumption or whatever, but that's where you end. That's always where you end. And there was, anyway, there were a few different ones. Oh, the other one that I love so much, the Whole Foods episode. Have you seen that one?
I don't know.
There's two health nuts in the Whole Foods together.
Keep going.
And they're like, you know what? I just go outside and when I lick a mountain. And then they're like, I strap the fish to my veins. You know, they go through the whole thing. And the twist, though, do you remember what the twist is? They start making out. The twist is all this animosity and competition to be the healthiest person has been turning them on because this is the best other human they've ever met. You are part of my tribe. And then it turns out that one of the actors says, oh yeah, that's how my parents met. So there's our little fun flip. So at the end, you're escalating. You don't just escalate one time more and end.
Yeah, that's no good.
You got to find that punchline. So that's really going to help your pacing. And then that's where you get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
Deliver the real punchline and you're gone.
And be done.
Mic drop, people. Learn the art of mic drop.
Okay, you're going to do big
yeah. Okay.
If you don't want to.
So yeah,
I have one from Princess
actually
Bride.
You go with that one.
Okay, so once you get big laughs, this is the next one down here on pacing and editing. You can drag out the pacing and repeat the jokes and make it funnier and funnier. Now, Princess Bride actually does this a lot, and so I looked it up. There's the scene with the Miracle Max, and they say Humperdinck, 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 and they kind of let that go for a while. But the one they really let go to have right here somewhere, this is the best one, because they let it go forever. Okay, Wesley is establishing that he has this iocane powder that he's put into this drink, right? And so all
are we talking about that? I can clearly
Vicini. All Vicini has to do is just pick which one to drink, right? It could be like a 10-second thing. No.
Judging from what I know of you, you know of me.
All you do is divine from what I know of you are just sort of the man that puts the poison to his own goblet or his enemies. And then he goes on and on and on. And
you
keeps
like
saying,
to think that.
I was not a great fool, or you had counted on it. So clearly not. She's the one in front of me. Everything he says proves what a fool he is. And it's totally working. So what do? They go with it for a half-page single space. I mean, that's a long time.
And did you ever watch that scene and think, man, get to the point, drink the freaking wine?
Like, once you hit it, just go with it. And she just keeps going on and Australia and the powder's origin and I bested my spin. That's the best part. And, oh, this is the thing, too, that movies get to do, that we kind of get to do, but movies get to do, they bring the camera angle in closer. And they bring the dramatic music up. Can you kind of picture it when he's like, "You've beaten my giant," which means you're exceptionally strong. And you remember that?
Yes,
like, he gets closer, and like the music starts, and his voice
starts getting red.
It's just so ridiculous. But you, as the writer, can actually do that too. You can use your tricks to really focus us in and just make it as ridiculous as you can if you're going for ridiculous. But anyway, so then he finally drinks it, but they really hold on to the joke for a while, which makes it, and actually, you know what I should have done? what's the one, the British comedy where they do that constantly? No, having coconut.
Oh, of course, Monty Python. I was thinking the same thing, like,
yeah, it just goes Fox Sparrow.
Yes.
Forever and ever and ever, and it never is not funny. Like,
it's always funny.
And you know, in that sense, I guess they don't really end with the big. They don't always end with a big smash. Sometimes.
So break the rules. Surprise us. By the way, all you lame non-commenters, I just thought I would say that if you don't comment, you get no critiques.
You can't give the critique.
And then we just get to work on our own book. And then we will beat you in the first chapter contest.
I mean, I can't do it. I told you. Okay. Doing humor poorly actually can be really funny. And actually, we were just talking about Monty Python. I think Monty Python's a good example of that because they just do something, and maybe it's not that funny, but they just do it, and they just do it and do it and do it and do it until you're just like, all right, fine,
I have to laugh, right?
Fine, you know.
Right, like
the Office does that too.
Yes, The Office, Michael from The Office.
Oh my gosh, Michael, would you describe him as like a really good comedian? Like if he were your coworker, would you be like,
he's an idiot.
No,
he's not funny.
But yeah, it's so funny.
Right, but then that also comes back though, unfortunately, to social division.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because you look at Michael, and in a certain way, you as a viewer are deriding Michael, and that's how you're getting your pleasure.
That's a good point, which we go over right here. Some of the things to make fun of is actually the viewer or the reader is invited to laugh at other people's weakness, and so you're going to talk about that a little bit. Yeah. But people do it all the time. We all laugh at other people's weaknesses. In fact, there's a tension release about our own weaknesses when we
can see someone else doing something.
What's the chats or somewhere else? Remember last time when they were chatting it up, and I couldn't ever figure out where the chats were? Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah, it would be cool.
Oh
my gosh, there you are. But now you're playing us, and I don't want to watch us.
Okay, yeah. We need to turn us down. You guys, I'm so sorry. As usual, we are perpetually new to this. Okay, it doesn't matter how many times we do it.
Stupid. Well, here's something I said there must have been really funny because you were like dying. Okay.
I'm dying. Oh, I'm so glad you like our outfits. I'm just assuming they come.
I'm going to assume they love our outfits and they find us to be hilarious. Okay.
I'm so happy.
Do you want me to get to voice-based humor?
Yeah. Yes, we're going to go right on to
Okay. So, comparisons like similes and metaphors blend opposites, and sometimes that's really fun. Sometimes it's all literary, but sometimes you can just make somebody just die laughing with the metaphor that you do. And then sometimes they're just too on the nose, and actually I really love that. It's one of my favorite things to do that I do in my own writing. Like I'll be like, you'll have this character who's a competition dancer and she's about to get caught skipping school, and I'll say she jumped up off the couch faster than a competition dancer about to get caught skipping school. You know, like, or just something silly, which is also doing humor wrong.
Right.
Which also works. Right. But one of the other ones that I really liked, and I wish I had that book here with me right now, is Eric Patton, E.J. Patton, when he did his monster book. But the beginning of the thing, he talks about how I walked into this forest of tall trees that loomed like tall things that loom over other things. It was amazing. And I was like, you're in my tribe. Let's be friends. Okay.
I have to quote this from Kathy's book. Do you mind if I
do it?
Because I told her I'd find some examples. She was worried she wouldn't be able to find enough. But I love this one. Okay, this is a covenant book, and Kathy's in my writers group. And so sometimes we worry that her covenant editor, who we love, will, nix some joke that we think is hilarious, but that she thinks is too
push the boundaries
a little too much. And so one thing I wanted to point, voice-based humor, we've got things that you might juxtapose would be like moral and immoral. So she has a scene in here where the guy, the hero guy, says that he never takes his hat off. And she says,
that's creepy.
You never take your hat off? And he's a cowboy.
Okay.
Like he has this cowboy hat, She says, I only take it off for 2 reasons. I'm not going to read the whole thing. And she's like trying to figure out what the reasons are. She's like, okay, well, you take off your hat when you take a bath. And he goes, yeah, and the other one. And she says, well, how about when you sing the Star Spangled Banner? And he says, all right, okay, I take my hat off. 3 reasons. So she guesses a bunch more. And then finally, he gives her the look, and she says, she blushes, and she's like, oh, when you're sleeping, and he kind of, but we were like, is that too much for a covenant? Because it's kind of got a picture of them sort of in a bed, and the hat comes off, and then what happens, And so we were like, that's actually really pushing the envelope a little bit for Covenant. They went ahead and let it come in, but it's funny. I think it reads really funny, especially to a Covenant reader. But that's knowing your audience, because I think somebody who likes more biting humor, that would be way too gentle for them.
They wouldn't even notice it was funny.
They wouldn't even notice it was funny. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Okay, so then there's things like that are inherently ludicrous. So you, so I have an example from my work in progress right now. This character and their 11-year-olds or 10-year-old kids are going to try and sink this paddle wheeler ferry boat at a big local park. And it says, M. Perkins about to sink the boat. Okay, they stood on top of the deck, looking over the gorgeous scene, but M could hardly see any of it. She was too busy picturing how it would go the day they sunk the boat. People screaming and crying and diving for the life preservers. M standing calmly up in the middle of the upper deck and calling for silence. Two to a preserver, M would say, and you look strong and athletic. How about you try swimming on your own? It'll be good exercise. No one's going to die. You're all going to make it just fine. And here's M as they're sinking this boat like the Titanic in the middle of this giant reservoir, and she's picturing herself as this sort of like tour guide director. And I just, it's subtle. It's not like really hilarious.
Like she's fairly little.
She's young and naive, and she's got this ridiculous idea in her head that it would be. Yeah, that's how she's gonna save everyone. That's how we can still like her.
That's awesome. Can I'll do one more. Okay, Jennifer Nielsen, The False Prince. I love it too. This is right on the first page, so I don't have to. He has just stolen a roasted duck, I believe. I'd never attempted roast thievery before, and I was already regretting it. It happens to be very difficult to hold a chunk of raw meat while running, more slippery than I'd anticipated. If the butcher didn't catch me with his cleaver first and literally cut off my future plans, I vowed to remember to get the meat wrapped next time, then steal it. And so all you're doing really there, I mean, not only is it inherently ludicrous situation because running with the raw meat, and you can kind of get a visual there, but also they're juxtaposing how calm he is about theft versus the frantic, like, I'm being all analytical. But it's just like, this is my day job. This is my day job.
Whatever. I don't think next time I'm going to do it differently. That's great.
I thought that one was awesome.
That's great. Okay. So socially unacceptable is another option. And I will say that I think, you know, there's a reason why so many middle grade boy novels rely on underwear farts, boogers, and worm-like creatures in order to make things funny. But I think you can way overdo this. Like, if you say a swear word, there's a certain one. If you say it to my mother, her nostrils will flare while she tries not to laugh. And if you said it to her every day, she'd probably just slap you or want to. And if I say, so I'm a photographer, and all I have to do to get a 4-year-old boy to smile, like, first time, I just say booger, they say booger, and the smile is amazing, right? But if every single 6 months when I take that kid's picture, he comes in, I'm like, say booger, like, he's gonna be like, booger. So just, some of these things are overdone. And, like, the other thing I wanted to point out with the socially unacceptable is know your audience. Because if you pull a socially unacceptable thing on a Mormon audience, okay, so is it time? Is it time for my item?
Do it?
I think I have to do it.
Shoulder pads. Just because I try to get her shoulder pads, guys. I
shoulder pads wouldn't help this. I'm not gonna whip.
Oh, I thought she was
no, friends. No. Okay, so my darling sister, I babysat for her baby last week. And I watched him for 48 straight hours, and he's 5 weeks old, and I was tired. But anyway, I got this amazing gift she brought me to my house like a couple days later, and it just said, thank you so much for watching our baby. And it's in a new baby bag, which, you know, she's regifting it, but still very appropriate, even though I'm like barren at this point. But anyway, so new baby bag, and it says, thanks so much for watching our baby. Now don't go having one of yours. And I don't know if you can see the contents of this bag.
Wait, we have to make sure they can see.
There are 100 condoms in this bag that she gave me to thank me for watching her tender, precious newborn baby.
Just so she wouldn't think of having her own baby.
And I would make sure to be safe because it exhausted me. I was tired. So anyways, I just thought I'd bring that up partly because it's hilarious and I should share it with all the people, and partly because it's a little bit socially unacceptable. But as Nikki pointed out, if we're not in this little kind of slightly buttoned up Mormon culture,
it wouldn't be as much.
No, you're just like, here's some condoms, and they're like, you just gave me condoms.
It would be funny, but it wouldn't be.
Thanks for the condoms, man. Some good use out of those. Anyway, so there you go.
I love it.
All right, and then immoral. Do you want to address immoral or insane?
We're not going to do all of them. Let's go to running gags. Did you have anything for running gags?
No, you go, girl.
Okay, so this is running gags can be long. I mean, if I were to read you, they can go on. You can have your start here, and then 3 pages later, and then so it can be long. But this one's really short, so I thought we'd do it. But oh shoot. got the wrong page. Just a second. Here we go. Sorry. The character actually says sorry. So one character says to the other character, sorry, got distracted, but it's definitely over now. You and Cece can go back to doing your homework or smoking crack or whatever it is you two do up there in the afternoon. Smoking crack, she snorts. That is so 90s. We're sniffing crack. Oh, right. Well, carry on. Clarice and Cece headed back upstairs while Marcia gaped at me, more wide-eyed than ever. We're just kidding around, I said. And then, because I couldn't resist, we're all on meth. So,
that's awesome.
I know.
So you just take it one step further.
Like, push it one more time.
That's awesome. I did have a good example for insane. So,
good.
Yeah, if things are insane, you can make fun of them. And I was thinking about Michael Scott again from The Office because he literally is insane. But then I was also thinking of Parks and Rec, which is my favorite sitcom ever. And I was thinking of Lil Sebastian from Parks and Rec. He is a miniature horse that the entire town worships. Everyone in the town loves Lil Sebastian. They sing songs. I could sing you rock songs that are written about Lil Sebastian.
Nice.
They have like a funeral for him when he dies. It is so epic.
Wait, I thought it was like a little toy.
No, he is like a miniature like Shetland pony who is like deep beloved icon. There's only one person in the entire town who doesn't worship Lil Sebastian. And he can't even say it.
That's immoral that he doesn't worship.
It is immoral, but also insane. So there's this insanity going on, and we have one sane human who's just sort of blinking and trying to help.
Or the opposite, they think he's insane.
Right, he is insane, but he doesn't even ever say it. He would never say it. Lil Sebastian is like a god figure for him. Anyway, so okay, now the other one is exaggerating things, which of course,
everyone.
Like that's, I mean,
big one.
This is what we did with our look today, except for me. I wish that I had, I'm glad I didn't overdo it.
No,
I'm glad I didn't overdo it. I would have gone all out, but I didn't. So, again, with that, okay, so I was thinking about sadness from Inside Out. So, it's okay, crying helps me slow down and obsess over the weight of life's problems. And then she like flops onto the ground and is like, please drag me around through the labyrinth or whatever. And it's really, so exaggerated, but so beautiful. And then what's awesome is they hand her this exaggerated optimist who is right there juxtaposed with her. And then we get, someone says like, where did you read that? It doesn't matter. I read it and it's awesome. Like this constant, continuous optimism. So I think that was really fun. And then, and
I like it too because you can see how both are weakness.
Right.
The forced optimism when the stakes really are high and things aren't really going well.
Mm-hmm. It's a problem.
That's a problem.
Right.
I really like it.
Yeah, and it's nice when you can make your humor then turn into this wonderful
lesson,
and that makes you genius, and I love you, and I'll read your work. But what I was gonna say is I have a scene with Em and Henry who are trying to sink the boat, and they have to take a grinder. They have to plug in on the boat. They have to plug in an extension cord upstairs and go down into the hull and grind off this lock to this room that they're trying to get in to sink the boat. And it says, but somehow their luck and their visibility held together. Even though Em was waiting every minute for someone to rush up to them and yell, what are you doing with all that electricity? Or with a cord like that, I can clearly see you're up to no good. And so my alternate sentence for that is Em was scared because someone could see the extension cord and get suspicious. Right. So when you're looking through, and this is really, I wanted to read this example because how many sentences do I actually have in my manuscript that are Em was, or whoever was, emotion because X. That's really boring. So instead, I just slightly exaggerate this idea that any minute someone's going to say this ridiculous thing to them, which they didn't say. So, and then one more example, and this also really helps with show, don't tell. And if you're showing me stuff instead of just giving me a sentence like Em was scared. So my alternate sentence, and I'll read you the bad one first, is Henry was super scared to do anything bad. But instead, what I have to kind of make his character trait sparkle and then to make it funny, the main problem with Henry as a partner in crime was that his conscience was more highly evolved than Em's. He kept trying to add things to the no list, like loud noises in class or using construction paper without the teacher's permission. And these are like the major no-nos. If you're going to commit an act of ultimate evil, major no-nos go on the no list. So like using construction paper without permission, so I'm way exaggerating what he probably was trying to do, but then it just gives you a little sparkle and a little fun
sense of it,
rather than Henry was anal.
Right. So. Okay, we're going to have to speed up a little bit. That's okay. Satire is biting humor. We're just not going to, just look it up. Just use the internet. The list, everyone's seen the list where you have a pattern with 2 items and then you break it on the final one. Like I like skiing and boating and then something ridiculous, Wordplay. also very common, you know, you just use the double meaning of words. That I think,
and you make them up.
Awesome.
And you make up words.
You can make them up.
You let your voice do what it's gonna do with language.
You know, musicals and operas do really, really well with wordplay. And the Desert Star, if you can ever go see a showing there, they're really good at wordplay. So starting a sentence on one kind of story and ending on another, what I mean by that is this. So I'm going to go to page 4 for you here. This is actually a really common one too. You've probably done it before. So there's this one guy in this story, and he is, he's stealing something, and the guards catch him, and they're going to handcuff him. But first they make him take his pants off, because what if he has something in his pants? And then they make him take his shirt off. And then, anyway, so then he says, standing there in nothing but my boxer shorts and socks, I straightened to my full height, looked him in the eye and said, if you want me to take off anymore, you'll have to buy me dinner first. So we've got one story where they're making him strip down, and then we end it with a different story as if he's on a date. Like, in other words, the joke shifts, you know, and it's funny, especially because the moment is actually pretty tense. He's actually a CIA agent, and you're rooting for him. So it's kind of tense that he's, you know. And
he can pull off the bad.
Oh yeah, totally. Like,
hilarious.
Yeah, like the James Bond kind of thing. Yeah, like an aloof kind of a thing. Yeah, totally. Okay, and then surprise is kind of inherent. I'm not going to go into that a ton. Oh, actually, no, I am going to. This one, so if you're constantly trying to deliver what the reader doesn't expect, sometimes it can kind of get old. And so sometimes you'll want to deliver what they do expect. I have a girl in my opening who hides from another character, but she accidentally hides in a cabinet made of glass. So it's see-through. And she's above everyone else. She climbs up into this cabinet to get away from them, but she doesn't realize that they're tall enough to still see him. So the characters that she's trying to avoid are walking past. There's one particular character she wants to avoid. And there's his friend there is with them. And so the whole time she's like, oh no, he's going to see me, he's going to see me, he's going to see me. So the reader expects something else to happen, but no, I just have him see her. So
right.
She says, there's another friend out there that she can see through the wall. She says, I give her a thumbs up. And Gilberto, that's the guy she's worried about, waves at me. Yeah, that's right, he waves. He just completely casually waves. And that's not even the crazy part. I wave back. Thank you, Gilberto says to her friend Maria Concepcion. You have strange customs in America. He turns and bows to me. He's talking about me being inside a cabinet. I want to shake all of my happiness into my new mentor. I was caught inside a cabinet, and I still wasn't caught. So we have him. He's from Argentina. And he's like, look, people hang out in cabinets. And then he just keeps going. And he doesn't tell his friend, look, there's this girl, and she's stalking you, and she's in a cabinet. You know, so just as a tiny.
So you did deliver what they would.
Well, I didn't have her. Yeah, I didn't have her be caught.
And then you flipped it, right? So you did both.
Yeah. Anyway, so that kind of stuff's fun. And then using mood, cartoons do this a lot. You know, the cartoon characters tiptoeing, and something's going to come around the corner, and then what comes around the corner isn't scary, but silly. You know, it's like a fake snake, or it's a whatever, and
we're still cavemen. Chickens are hilarious.
I know Looney Tunes does that a lot. I don't know if you've seen that. Okay, we should
rush.
Yeah, we kind of need to rush. I have a lot for physical humor.
You know, I don't. I was just thinking of like, no, I think I'm good.
Because actually, even though we talked, what I think of when I do humor, voice is things that wrap in a line or two. You know, you're just kind of freshening up the way of communicating your plot. I like to think of Pride and Prejudice.
You always say Pride and Prejudice.
I mean to say Princess Bride. I don't know what's wrong with me. But anyway, Princess Bride is like a really legitimate plot. It could be written in like high English poetry, and it would be like a really interesting plot to read, I think. But instead, they wrote it with humor. They literally wrote every line. They're like, okay, how can I communicate this plot point in the funniest way possible? And they did that for every single thing. So in that sense, they crafted it like poetry, and it's beautiful, in my opinion. It's like that funny. I love it. It's art.
The best.
It's the best. But so so you can do these same things that we mentioned up here in voice. you just do them grander and you show them instead of just using a line to tell them.
Right.
So like slapstick is physical comedy, usually injures one of the people who are involved. Not always, but
I was just picturing Home Alone. Many large, heavy, spiky, hot objects hitting big guys, and
So
who's doing it?
true.
The little kid
The
going,
little kid.
right? So that's when we laugh.
Absurd situations. This one, again, it's best if they end with a punchline, and we already talked about that. So absurd situations, when you have just a little line, that's kind of voice, but then as soon as you put it into a full
It's a whole scene,
then it's just, you know, it's more of a physical humor.
And then you've got to end on something, which is going to be your disaster or your victory or your a decision.
Something that
can be funny,
yeah.
just like what Nikki was talking about in the glass cabinet.
Right. Okay, so situational humor, we're not even going to go into that a lot. If you write like a full-on comedy, there is a lot written on making comedies. This is more for taking what your normal chapter is and adding that little bit. So we're going to kind of go there. Let's go on to getting started. Let's say you have your first chapter written, or you don't. It doesn't really matter.
Hope you do.
Probably, yeah. For the contest, I hope you do, because it's due in 2 weeks. But anyway, don't start with this. Don't think, I'm going to read this, and then it'll spontaneously be funny. That is probably not the best idea. So what do you really do to get started? This is more of an editing help. It's good to have in your brain.
Nikki and I were talking about just the brainstorming and also overwriting. Is that what you're kind of getting at here? So the fact that you just want to open yourself up, like when I had to have my kids do bad things, they have to do a lot of evil deeds.
And I was like,
kids. No, in my middle grade, I'm just finishing. But anyway, I just went to my group and I said, okay, ways to pants your teacher. Who can think of what ways you might be able to accomplish that? You know, exactly. Make it as funny as possible. And you know, it's great because people are smarter than me and more brains are smarter than one brain. And also what Nikki said about overwriting, just let yourself throw everything at the page in that first draft. Just go for it. Just give it your all and try all the ideas. Some of them will fall way flat later. Your readers will say, I didn't understand what you were trying to say there. And then you'll just cut it. So you want to be able to have a whole bunch of things that you created that you can then just distill down to something really simple and keep just the glimmering gems. And one of the things we talked about was the editing. So would go back. If you've made a joke, if you've made a funny, do not have 2 explanatory sentences after. Make sure you get out. You might drop on the punchline, right?
Yes.
And then the next thing,
switch the sentences up if you need to.
Right. And then read it aloud to a group of people if you possibly can. And if you can't, at least read it out loud to yourself. But then ditch whatever people don't like. And if clarity, make sure that it's clear, because it might be clear to like half your group and the other half doesn't get, you know, what's going on. So make sure you clear that up for them. If your joke messes up your tension, breaks the pacing of the story, cut it. Be willing to kill the darlings. And also, if it's tangential, and Nikki was saying that's like the hardest thing to judge, but for me, something that I know, if I'm putting a joke in, if I'm tossing a joke out in there, that if I know that it came from my own personal experience in a way that is totally self-indulgent, like my writer will be like, that wasn't funny. I'd be like, oh, that's because
you had to be there. I mean, you would have
needed to be a French teacher. I was a French teacher to get that really joke. Funny. You know, and they're like, so just cut it. Just ditch it. It's not, you know, just put it. You know what I do? I have in Scrivener, I have a little thing called gems. And when I love something so much and it's so beautiful to me, I'll never see it again. But I tell myself I can go back and look at my greatness later. And I just put it in there. Sometimes I do.
I had to cut a few gems today. I was editing. It was okay. Wait, when you read the whole scene later, you're just like, this is awesome. The pacing's right on. It's fast. Like, it's just so great.
You know, I was just thinking about Harry Potter and the Dursleys, and I was thinking about the misery that is shown to us at the beginning of that book. And if there had been no humor in that first chapter, I would not have read the second.
Plus, it would have been an entirely different genre.
Right.
It would have been like all literary.
Right. But even if it was all literary, like, try and find a way to lighten things up.
That's true. That's true. Sometimes people don't want to lighten things up. It's true. If you want a heavier book, but even really literary stuff. I told you I read that book. Remember, it was like The Strange and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde or something. Mm-hmm. It's totally awesome, but it's like joke after joke after joke. But it's a very serious look at like war and bad stuff. So, but it's very funny. More satirical, because everything they make fun of, you're like, that's not funny.
It can't be funny.
Like, you know what I mean? Like
Catch-22.
Mm-hmm.
Classic example.
Classic example
Funniest,
of that.
best humor probably
So
I've ever read
funny.
in my life. But like, holy crap,
It leaves
the things
you-
they're talking about.
It leaves you more disturbed about the world.
Yeah, you change as a person
You up
reading
the
that book.
tension of my overall life rather than actually.
And that's a heat-seeking missile. I'm sure there are people that read that book and they're like, you can't joke about that. You know,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Yeah, plus
it's pretty wonderful.
It borders on, you know, it has
irreverent in every way.
Irreverent in every way. Right. Okay. Oh, so we haven't really talked a ton about using humor for world building. I think that the world is the more you know your world, the more you will see the idiosyncrasies of it.
Yep.
And the more you focus on trying to find the idiosyncrasies, the more complex your world will be. So those two things go hand in hand. The better you know your world, the better your humor will be.
And that's not your funeral will be.
Did you say humor? I don't know. I said funeral. Well, that's true.
My funeral is gonna rock. I'm gonna write everyone a script.
Oh my gosh. I hope you die first because I'm gonna be there.
Yeah. So, just use your humor. I guess what I'm saying with the Harry Potter thing, if you are writing something with a ton of angst and you're giving me all the conflict I begged you for in one of our other webinars,
right? Because we're constantly.
Please lighten it up. Let them laugh at themselves a little bit. Let something settle in.
Did I have any examples that were just so amazing they had to be? I don't know about yours. I had to establish in mind that there are like kind of cliques and groups, you know, like the cool kids and the whatever. And so instead of just saying that, again, you were talking about this, you can try to say it with some kind of voice. So they're talking about these two other girls she's trying to make friends with, and they start talking about a sorority. I shrink back. A sorority? That's what cool people throw in your face to prove that even in college you'll be a geek. Sororities and nerdery are like Barbie and Ninjago toy sets. They don't mix. So she kind of starts to get this sense that she's not as cool as they are and whatever.
So I would definitely say, even if you're not going to take anything else from this, go back and read your first chapter. Oh,
I know.
Go back and read your first chapter and read and find those boring sentences. Just mine your story for moments when your sentences suck and when you would be bored if you were reading it.
Yeah.
And then take that sentence and think of how to show me in a funny or voicey way.
And experiment. Let yourself write really crafty stuff. I feel like with humor, I feel like half of what I write just gets thrown out. Yep. Because you just kind of have to, and that's why like here we put like outfits together and whatever, and maybe that wasn't that funny, but we had examples. And maybe
but we laughed a lot upstairs. Like you missed the manic part.
But the point is, the more, it's really hard, I think, once you've tightened everything up in your chapter, or once you're really focused on plot, it's hard to add the humor later. It's a little bit harder. It can be a little bit harder. And I know you may have already written your chapter, but let yourself take a scene and kind of go tangentially from there and just kind of see what comes up and then see if you can add that back.
Chances are, if you're a writer, chances are you're one of those people that when you can get past your introvert self, you are hilarious.
We know you can do it.
Chances are you know how to riff with your friends and the funny comes out, right? So just imagine that one person who you're always really good with, you're always on with, and kind of be that in your character's world.
And not everything you say live is that great.
Right.
And this is hard because we are actually live in front of you, but the thing that's nice about being a writer, you can edit that crap out.
We didn't plan a punchline to end this webinar on. I'm so sad. Oh, but we can give away a critique, and that will be amazing.
I know. We have to tell them the last line. So sorry. This is okay. Read it aloud to a group. This word right here is supposed to be ditch. Whatever your group doesn't laugh at or didn't really work, just erase it. Don't.
If they were listening carefully, I already said.
Oh, you were awesome. I'm sorry. Did you want to say messes up?
Yeah, if it messes up,
I'm sorry.
or the breaks attention, but I was just chatting, so they might not have known.
Okay. How many? Oh, I should have done this already. Here, read them. Read them something that you've never read before. This will be
okay. I'm gonna read you something hilarious.
But you've read Jen Johansson.
Oh, I have. I critique for her.
Yes.
We're like BFFs.
We're BFFs. I'm not BFFs.
She's BFFs. She's great. What am I reading?
Page 6.
Okay.
It starts with "It's almost," and then I'm gonna count how many chats we have. Sorry, people.
All right. It's almost noon, Your Majesty, she yelled back from the kitchen. I stopped in the middle of the hallway and rubbed my eye. It's almost 11. Stop exaggerating or I'll have to hire new help. Yeah, Mom muttered.
Sure. I thought that was funny.
It is funny. No, I just wasn't sure if there was more hilarity coming.
No. Just, like you said, I'll have to hire new help.
Well, here's another good moment, though. I fought the urge to tell her to tell anyone about what I'd seen. As much as I would have liked to go to the police and tell them I'd witnessed Mr. Flint murder his wife in a dream, I knew no one would believe me. And the psych ward wasn't my idea of a prime weekend hangout. There's just a little voice there to show me he's kind of like, he doesn't just say, I'm really scared that people will think I'm psycho.
We're going to do a random number generator right now and announce our winner, and then we will let you guys go. You guys are awesome. Actually, I have to check to make sure that there are true random number service.
You're good.
Fantastic.
And it's number 3.
Yep.
Commenter number 3.
Don't tell them that because now I have to commenter 3. I want to make sure. See, it's totally random if I just go and find the third name. Does that make sense?
Well, third name. So it's third name.
We're gonna go Dr. 119.
Okay, we don't even know who you are, Dr. 119. But we are waiting for you.
Oh, look, Penny Edelman is here. Penny, you're awesome. Hi, Penny. Okay. Shoot, there's nothing really else that needs to be said. Oh, I was gonna check and see if there were questions. Sorry, because I asked him. I prompted him. Are there categories which should not have humor? I actually don't think so. What do you think?
No.
What if
you were just
Allison Merrill asked the dumbest question? She just asked what if she's not a funny person. Why would you care, Allison Merrill? Because you are freaking hilarious. I have to know her. Why would you ask that?
She's so self-deprecating. She's actually trying to be hilarious right now. She's using one of our techniques.
Totally get it.
To share with us. Anyway. So
let's see.
Allison, that's okay.
Okay, but no, seriously,
I think every category needs humor. You just have to know your audience and try to send your heat-seeking missile where it's going to go.
Sometimes, if you want the mood to be dark and heavy, if you're writing about the Holocaust and you want people to be worried about man's inhumanity to man, don't break it up.
Right, and there's that whole like too soon thing. Like you're not going to
be too soon.
Joke about everything and in every circumstance.
What humor does is it breaks up the tension. So if you don't want your reader to have that tension be broken, then don't use humor.
The problem is, as a reader, I need the tension to be broken.
Especially for
I need those kids
novel.
in Fault in Our Stars to start egging the girlfriend after the kid has his eyes taken out. I'm sorry, spoiler alert. I need them to joke about their cancer. It's irreverent. It's awful. I've had friends who I love die of cancer.
Right.
And I need them to do that so I can cry.
Otherwise,
sometimes I can't even cry till they let it burst for me.
Otherwise, it's not a YA. It's more like a, like, I don't know, some serious look at,
even if it is a serious look, please give me a little, just
right. I don't know. I've read.
There are a few things. There are a few
things that are very, very, but I don't like them. They're not my favorite. But Allison, you write things that are funny without knowing they're funny, which actually is, I think that makes the funny better.
That's why I was so scared of this webinar. When Nikki told me that we were going to do humor, I actually quit doing webinars with her for 8 months. Because I'm only funny accidentally, ever. No, I'm serious.
So I know
and I knew this was the topic, and I'm like, oh, crap. So
there are some people that say things, especially because Allison Merrill, I happen to know her, and she's from China, so her real name, given name, was something not Allison. I have no idea how to pronounce it. But anyway, but sometimes she will just tell you, like, the most normal thing about her Chinese like upbringing, and you are just busting a gut, and she's like, no, that really is how we lived, you know, and we're like, no, seriously, and it's just so,
Nikki, that's like me and my energy healing.
and being from Canada, I mean, come on.
Freaking Canadian. Okay. I do not drink beer vats and
okay, we're done. We're calling this. Thank you guys so much. You're the best.
See you next week.
Wait, I don't know how to end it.
Oh crap.
Well,
go back here and click not live.